This episode of Ladder Legacy is proudly sponsored by the Bedford Group Insurance, helping families and businesses protect what matters most. Whether it's coverage for your home, your family, your team, or your future, Bedford's got your back with the best reliable insurance solutions in Florida. Visit our website to learn more, bedfordinsurance.com. And now on to your episode.
Hey everybody, this is Rudy Romero. I am out and about today in the market, meeting with business owners, but I decided to sit down today with John Hosey with Aldi. This is somebody we've already met with, who's had great information about how to build and create talent within your organization. And I wanted to talk to him again today because there's been some hot topics in the market. John, thanks for coming on again with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Rudy.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I mean, the marketplace has been so turbulent lately in the state of Florida. I mean, in the country in general, right? We have big IPOs coming out. The biggest IPO at the end of the week coming out, or next week coming out, with SpaceX. We have major movements in the development world in Florida. Things are happening over here, and I've just been absolutely banging my head against the wall trying to find amazing talent. And I just have to understand, John, where is everybody? Because they keep saying there's all these jobs out there and there's postings and there's all this wonderful business work going on, but I can't find them. And I don't know where they went.
Rudy, it's really interesting because I've heard this too. Speaking as somebody who is a recent entrepreneur, right, and coming out of the corporate world, from just a few years ago. I have friends who, out there in the market trying to find work of various ages, right, and various career stages. And then I'm also plugged in with the Advanced Leadership Development Institute. We work a lot with folks in HR, right? So Sherm, go to their meetings and kind of hear what's going on, right? And we have this weird environment right now where the people who are looking for jobs are reporting that it's hard to find a job. And the people that are looking to source talent are reporting that they're having a really hard time sourcing talent. And that's what you're experiencing, right? You're trying to find people for your organization, and it's hard to find talent. I haven't, but
it's everywhere,
been able to put, and it's everywhere. Yeah. And talk to me a little bit about the roles that you're kind of looking to fill, because I know you're an entrepreneur. You have multiple entities. The kind of talent that you're looking for and where you're kind of running into the biggest friction.
That's a great question. So from the cleaning business, the dry cleaners, to the insurance world, to the real estate world, to the development world, in each one of these verticals, I'm just, I'd say striking out's the wrong word, but, we're having conversations with the recruiters. And then, I think the recruiting space, I love those people, but statistically, there are some challenges a lot of recruiters have. Now, there are some good ones out there. I don't want to take that away from them, but even in each one of these verticals, whether I'm using Indeed, LinkedIn, Career Builder, ZipRecruiter, all these online platforms, I'm having people apply these positions in all things. So whether it be in the dry cleaning space, insurance, real estate, or development, and we're just not finding qualified talent. And the talent believes, truthfully, that they should be making six figures in positions that, we'll say maybe I held or maybe you held years ago that were not the case. And obviously, making sure people are getting a fair wage and a livable wage is extremely important. And it's part of how, as business owners, we have to take a step back ourselves and not take income, right? Because it's important to make sure our people are paid, because our people happy means our customers are happy. But it's just been a big struggle. And I've had people come in for a couple of months and do work for us, and then just honestly, they leave, either because they're remote, they just don't sign in, they don't want to work. And I don't know if it's a struggle other business owners are finding, but it seems to be, because I'm having the same conversation with multiple people.
Yeah. And, and it makes total sense. And I think there are a couple of, and this is just me editorializing, right? Because I'm not a recruiter. I'm not looking at the big data, right? But just from talking to people, again, talking to other leaders who are hiring, right? I think what you're experiencing is pretty common right now. And I think what's going on there is a couple of things. One, let's look at culturally, right? You and I grew up in an era of grind culture. And it was, look, you take a job, whatever the job is. You take a job, it may not pay well. It may not even be, put you on the career path you want to take. You may not even know what your career path is. But you get out there, you get your first job, you start getting experience, you start making money, and you just, and you find your path. And it might require taking jobs that for years do not pay well, and for years may not set you up and put you in the, the actual, and that was it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think, and there was also this expectation of, and it's getting really loud. I don't know. Can you hear it on your end?
Yeah, you're good. No worries.
Okay. And there was also this expectation of, look, it's going to take 10 years before you like really get to a place where, you're moving on a career path and you're building something, or you're getting to a management position, or any of those things. I think fundamentally a couple things have changed. One, I think that was more of a viable option in the economic environment that we grew up in. Now the cost of living is so high, right? And it is so challenging for, most families are 2-income families now and just getting by, right? In our kind of K-shaped economy here. And particularly in these roles that you're talking about, where you're not looking to hire senior managers, right? It was a different economy where we could come in entry level, grind it out, maybe have a bunch of roommates, right? And it's the start of your career, and you can go. Now the ability to survive financially is not the same as it was, right? And even families that, most families with children are 2-income families now, right? So cost of housing, cost of, and, basic goods and services, the three things that really have been on a continual runaway train over the past 20 years have been the cost of housing, healthcare, and education, right? So people come out with debt from education. They can't afford housing, and rent is astronomical. And they're young enough that they, if you're in these early stages, you don't need healthcare yet. But, as you're moving through the continuum, that becomes an issue. So I think one big thing is kind of the grind culture that we grew up in, and you come in and I remember my first job, I was actually, and rooting through my drawers to see, and the glove compartment of my car to see like what change can I pull together so I can get a slice of pizza for lunch. And I was somebody who went to college and then law school, right? So that's the one thing. I think the economics are different, so that people have more of an urgency around, I need to start making money faster than I was before. And I think that's part of what you see with this kind of this mismatch of people coming in, doing a job and being like, well, it's not going to give me the economic trajectory that I want as quickly as possible. I got to find something else to do. I think that's one. Another big one, I think, is just culturally, we have this current generation is looking for more out of a job that is about fulfillment, path, and trajectory. Where again, I'm a Gen Xer, right? I was born in the 70s. My idea about work was like, work is a grind. It's always a grind. You may not find the job that you love, but this is how work life goes. You get in there, you put your head down, and you just pull the cart, right? There's a different sense now of, look, and part of that was with a promise of living that way and working that way will lead eventually to financial prosperity, and will lead to more of like a solid path. And, like you could get in with a company, and the concept was like, I can grind and I can grow in this company. Once I got out there, I started to realize that kind of that approach, that ethos was something that I got from my parents in the prior generation. But when I got into the workplace was different, right? I did grind, I did do all those things, but to move up in my career, I actually, had to end up moving to different companies, moving across the country. I went and lived in California for 11 years, and now I'm back on the East Coast. So I started to see that grind culture of, you just get in, even if you take, whatever the entry level job is, and you work hard, you're going to have a path at a particular institution. I started to see that reality crumble in my career. Now I think that's even more true for the younger generation of like, I'm getting in these roles. They're not necessarily going to lead to any, I need to keep moving, and I need to be mobile, and I need to be agile, and I need to continue to look for the next thing. Because if I get into this role, in a small business or a big business, and it's entry level, that it may not give me the experience and get me where I want to go. And the owners and the managers may not invest in me in a way that I have goals. And a big piece of that is AI coming, right? AI at this point is coming in, and all those entry level roles are now, well, you're not even human capital. You're just a commodity, and so be doing a cloud role that's not going to turn into anything because AI is going to replace that. So I think that's another big piece here is, these people coming in and looking at roles that are entry level very quickly assess where it's going to go and what's going to happen and whether or not it's going to be something that's going to actually be career path for me, or I got to find my next thing.
Yeah, and I think you said it eloquently. It's a financial thing, right? So we all get it. We all understand. We all want to make $1 million a year plus, right? We all want to be that successful entrepreneur. Everybody wants to be Bezos. Everybody wants to be Musk, but they understand how hard they work. And I think that's the mentality, right? The monk who drives the Ferrari, right? That mentality that we all can just go obtain this $300,000 car, buy the $1 million house. And we're going to get that job right out of college. That's going to pay us that, high six figure, $350,000 a year. I wish I could have found that when I got out of college, right? I was a cop. I was a beat cop. I didn't know anything. Went back to school because my employer told me if I want the opportunity, not even get the job, just the opportunity to have the right to the job, I have to go back to work. I have to go spend $30,000 to get my bachelor's degree. And that's what I did. And that's a millennial. So again, to be fair, in my world, and maybe I'm just an old millennial, we'll call it, or a softie, whatever it is. But, that is a huge deal. Companies can't afford that mindset of that, and there's abundance, we want to be helpful, but companies can't afford to pay people that way. Because if they did, the price to customer would be exponential and would ruin the marketplace, right? And I think we've seen that with auto manufacturers, and not to call out, well, calling out specifically, but there are a few American manufacturers that are selling cars $167,000 plus per vehicle. How do people afford that? And even if you could, why would you do it? This retail mentality that's been created via social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, whatever the new age thing, because I'm old and I don't know all the fun stuff anymore. It's this mentality of, hey, we have to keep consumerism. We have to keep buying, buy. You have to have the newest technology. If I don't have the iPhone 27, then I'm just a loser and I don't have this cool stuff. That is just the wrong thought process. Less is more. And I hope that's a hot take that we can use, because less is more. We don't need to have all that. Abundance should be with family. Abundance should be with opportunity. Abundance should be with the people you surround yourself with. Tchotchkes and knickknacks are not the thing that define you as a person. They're just material goods. And surprise, you can't take them when you're gone, guys. So what does it matter? Have a life that's well lived because you had a good time. There's people out there who have a lot less than us. As Americans, even at the lowest income, we are still higher and most best income comparative to the rest of the world, which is an amazing thought. We have some of the best school systems in healthcare. Are we perfect? Do we have political upheaval? Do we have concerns? Of course we do. But we have to know that there's a system. And if we don't work within the system, then how do we continue to run businesses, and how do we continue to help other people, whether it be in the medical space or whether you're in corporate America or if you're just buying commodities? There's a system that is an ethos that has to work. And, there are some people who can work outside the system, and God bless them. They're doing a great job, and I hope they find the success, and they will in some ways. But also, there's a cost to success, and that cost is: are you spending time with your family, your kids? Are you being able to actually enjoy the life that you built for yourself? Are you going on vacations and taking the needed breaks? I can tell you, there's people out there right now working 2 jobs with another job on the side, right? Because they're trying to make that money. But is it the money to live, or is it the money because you want more junk? What is it for?
Yeah. And I think it's a combination of the two, because to your point, we are with social media, we are inundated with consumerism. And it is, the younger generations are kind of being indoctrinated early that consumerism is the way, right? You're not living your life well if you don't have, I know young folks today, there's a thing called, it's a haul video. You ever heard of haul videos on TikTok?
I have not.
So,
You're going to hate me.
Yeah. So haul videos are literally, kids go, they buy whatever they buy at the store, and then they take their armful of stuff and they make videos about it and they put it on TikTok and show all their friends. And so it is like the purest and kind of most insidious form of consumerism that we ingrain in children at a very young age, right? And then it's, oh, I'm jealous. Oh, I need to, and then all the kids start doing it. It becomes this snowball that rolls. And so to your point, I think it's, that is the need for money, the need for the, like you said, the people who have both folks are working and there's a side hustle. Part of it is about the overspending and the consumerism. Another part of it is what it costs to survive today, and how expensive it is to live. I mean, we look at the cost. So let's just take the cost of living and cost of housing down here. Right, there is a big mismatch in terms of in South Florida. We're seeing the cost of real estate. Like you said, there's all this development. It continues to go up and up and up, but the salaries stay relatively stagnant and aren't keeping up with that. And that's a challenge down here. Yeah, you see. So as an example, right? You see the, the breakers in Palm Beach, right? They are getting ready to break down on their own affordable housing development that's just for their workers, and the breakers is one of the largest employers in Palm Beach County and in this area, because the people who work there literally cannot afford to live within a reasonable commuting distance, right? So that's the kind of stuff we're seeing. That's the world we live in today. And, I think the other thing that was really interesting, that you said about, hey, look, this is about having a job should be about creating opportunity in your life that gives you more ability to spend time with your family and all of those things. But in this case, I look at, again, coming out of being a Gen Xer, work was about, and maybe it was just me, and maybe it was coming out of my family, but a lot of people I grew up with had the same kind of mentality, which was, you live to work and grind because that is how you live your life. And actually, the family kind of gets put on the side. Your job as the primary wage owner is to get out there, to grind and do this work. And so by creating up for the family, you're really just trying to create stability for yourself. You work your ass off. It creates financial stability for the company, for your family. But as like the male primary wage owner, which was the model that I came out of, being there to spend time for your family, enjoy life. That really wasn't the thing. That wasn't the thing we were ingrained with. The thing we were ingrained with was being the job of the man, and what it means to be a man is to saddle the mantle of working yourself into the ground so that everybody around you can be comfortable and have a happy life. And you're kind of there, but mostly your focus is that. And again, I think that has shifted too, that vision, that version of like, what does it mean to be a good provider? What does it mean to live a good life has shifted with this younger generation, because they've seen, hey, that model that the Gen Xers have doesn't always work out. And in fact, you can just kind of saddle yourself with a miserable life and just kind of be in service to the man, if you will, right? And so they're looking at, how do I create a work world where I can have more of that flexibility and opportunity and time for myself and live kind of a richer existence. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing with people hopping around job to job. What we're seeing with a lot of like what we look at is like, there's not grit and stick to itiveness. I think it's more about searching for what is life really about, and what does my life need to be about, and how do I set up my career and my opportunity to be in service of that. Talking to folks in HR, they say they're experiencing the same thing that you're talking about with with like these new entry hires. And what those people are really searching for is this job going to give me a path? Is it going to give me development? Is it going to give me, if I'm coming in, so not the remote work, but the folks who are coming into the office are really looking for that because they're not getting it from this, right? There's not this in their life outside of work. When it's in work, if I'm interacting with humans, how is that interaction going to give me something that's fulfilling and help me learn and give me development and move on a path? So yeah, it's totally different. And, and we specialize in that, right? That's what we do in our executive coaching. We're working with companies and helping them when they're trying to they're putting people into tracks for management. It's okay. How do we create programs where you can deliver that to your people and it can become an enrichment and retention tool and add to your culture? But for small business owners, it's really hard because you're trying to bring in people. You have less resources to do that, right? Especially if you're like the founder owner, you have less time, right? You're out there grinding. You're trying to do biz dev. You're trying to run the finances. You're trying to make sure the operational piece and the customer service piece, you're trying to grow the business. It's a lot. And in those environments, it can be harder to make time with intentionality to bring these people in and train them up, unless your idea is like, I'm really looking for somebody who's going to be a partner in this business and grow. But when you're just looking for people to do like, okay, like front desk client interactive work or things like that, or maybe it can be hard for you, right, as the small business owner to make the time to do that as well. So yeah, it's challenging right now. It really is.
And I think it's, and like you said, you work with this and you do this within your business. Like, I think it's great. I think that, people want to be better, do better, be more. I think that is an admirable thing. I love it. I love to see people. That's the whole point of From Ladder to Legacy, is to follow that. But I think people are forgetting a step in life. Right. And I think it's a fundamental step, whether you're, like you said, an X, or you're in the silent generation, or you're a boomer, or if you're Gen Z, or if you're a millennial, it doesn't matter. There's this step in life that you have to take, that you have to learn. You have to learn. It does not matter if you have AI. Let's be honest. AI is not going to make us all smarter. That is not what it's going to do. Right. So, and I already see it with the stuff I'm already working on when I send things. Right. So it's not a platform that's going to enrich us in education, enrich us in information. It's very different. Education and information are two very different things. What you consume, what you learn and can provide, two very different things. Running off statistics is not education. So I think what people are forgetting is you have to be able to get out there. Like you said, you have to grind and learn, right? You don't ask an athlete to go from a high school football team to right to the NFL. That just does not happen. Maybe it happens once or twice. I'm sure somebody will make a comment that, oh, this one person did it. Great. One person out of how many athletes that are on the roster of how many professional teams? Doesn't happen. There has to be a warm up. There has to be a ramp up. There has to be a runway. You have to get to that point. You can't go fly a Boeing 787 tomorrow, which apparently somebody has been doing for the last 20 years in Canada without a license for, or the incorrect license. So that was pretty interesting. Hasn't crashed a plane though yet. That was impressive. So, but one out of how many pilots out of thousands of legs of flights? One person. So again, I think it's great that everybody thinks they can be the statistic that challenges the status quo, to be that person, and to have that type of grit and an ability to believe in yourself so much. It's admirable, and I love it. But you have to come back to reality. I will not be an astronaut in my lifetime, and I've accepted that. I am not going to be a pole vaulter because I'm 6'1", 240. It's not going to happen. And I've accepted these things. But what I don't accept is that I will not accept mediocrity. And I will challenge the status quo. And I will figure out how to be more than what I want to be. But I also have to pay my bills. I also have to pay my employees. I also have to pay for the future. We have to pay for our kids. And we have to pay to a social security system that at some point, who knows when we're going to retire, if it's even going to be there. So there are things in this world that we have to still deal with, because it's part of the plan of the system. I guess for you, when you're speaking to these executives of companies, when you say, hey, Mr. the CEO, CDO, COO, how do you see the culture in your organization and how is it changing? Where are they seeing the biggest upheaval? Are they seeing it with college kids? Are they looking for kids out of college anymore? Because I've been hearing a lot of people aren't even looking for college educated kids anymore. They're looking for people who've actually done the work, because it means more to business owners if you actually know how to do the work than if you have an MBA. Because ultimately, Did you really pay attention? Did you use AI to cheat to get your degree? These are things now that are going to be conversations that are going to come up because we didn't have these things when we were, going to school and all that,
Yeah. 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 No, you're absolutely right. It is that the employers are looking for lived in experience. And because and I think that's the other piece of it too, is it's kind of like the record business and how that's changed, right? If we look at the way the music business, the record business used to work, you find talent, and then you end up you develop that talent, right? You give them time to work and practice and put the band together and write songs. And so these deals would be very much like, look, this is kind of we're seeing this as a long-term investment to get to the point where we're going to produce albums with you. And in the meantime, you are practicing and you are writing songs and you're getting better as a band, and, you're getting the formula together. Now, the way it works is they're looking for, if you're going to get a record deal, it's who's out there who already has a huge social media presence and TikTok following. And now we're going to take that person because we have a built-in revenue stream, and then we're going to build on that, right? And all that has to do with the way like the economics have changed in the record business. But, the economics are changing out there for companies as well. And we got to move faster. And this has never, this has always been there in terms of, hey, we'd love to have somebody with more experience. They can run faster, but it's just, it's much harder to bring on talent and that's raw and train talent that's raw. It's more expensive and all those things, and move them along the timeline, at least initially. What you can get with somebody that you bring in and you really develop them and you really get them to a place of excellence within your business is, number one, they come in tabula rasa, no bad habits, right? You can actually teach them, like, this is the way of our business. Two, you can generally, if you get them and you really can build that loyalty and trust, you can get more lifetime value out of that employee because they have a longer runway with your company, right? If you are being intentional about creating pathways for their development and their growth within the company. So, it is hard. You have companies that are looking at kind of immediate I have an immediate need and I don't have the time to train somebody. I want somebody that can kind of come in and just get running, versus these, really these talent structures that are about, let's create a longer term lifetime value. So it's hard as a small business owner. You have to balance that. The first small business I ever worked in that was entrepreneurial was I worked for my father, a little micro business. He was a real estate appraiser. I learned the art and trade of real estate appraisal. And it was, the two of us, and he was a sole practitioner. And the very first I was there, and what I was looking at when we were looking at culture expansion was doing exactly this. Let's create a training, and then let's use that as a pipeline for hiring. And the whole purpose with the trainee pipeline is to work this person into getting the certifications they need to stick with us and grow. And, that was just, that was up early on, but not everybody has that. So I think that's another thing that small business owners or business owners in general need to think about. If they're saying they're having a hard time finding talent and attracting talent and retaining talent, they really have to think about, well, what is it? What are the breaks? Is it just, if people are leaving because the financial opportunity isn't there and they don't see the opportunity with your business grow and stick with you, then really need to think about, then how are we going to shift this and rethink this? What are we going to do if we're going to bring to create an environment and to create a work experience where we do retain this talent and keep it? And again, it's about, the smart thing to do is really, as much as you can, think about not people as like disposable assets. If you're going to bring people into your business, how do you create long-term lifetime value and get the maximum amount of your investment into that?
Yeah, human capital. And I think and I love, and I'll give one of my old employers a tip to the hat. MVR Ryan Holmes does a outstanding job. As much as they do put you through the ringer, they're not a meat grinder, because that'd be unfair. There's some other builders out there that are like that, but they are a company that just happens to build houses. It's an unintentional thing. They may be a home builder, but home building is tertiary to their financial stability and their financial prowess. And they teach you really well. They put you through programs. You have to earn certifications that are with internal, right? They do a good award system so people feel incentivized because there are awards and recognitions. But again, that's a company that's worth billions of dollars. I think that's chop it up today at $9,900 per share. So, I mean, talk about a massive organization. I think the realization is, I think most people in their current situation would be happier working for a large corporate company than it is for them to go on their own entrepreneurial journey because they don't understand the grind that it takes, the amount of time it takes to suffer. Because being an owner is suffering. That's partially what it is, right? And I could tell everybody here, I started a bunch of businesses and I went years. That's a literal statement without taking money from my businesses because I had to, because paying my people and human capital was 10 times more important. And I've had people come and go in those organizations, right? Because that's what people do for various reasons. And that's good for them. I hope that everyone who I touch or work with at some point be able to work with them either in the same vertical or in some other way because they found success in their own path. But the training never ends and education never ends. I think there's this mentality of everyone knows better right now. I sure don't. I make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes in the next hour, I'm sure. That's just how the world is. But it's those mistakes that most people are so afraid of in this generation to make. Or maybe they're not, maybe a misunderstanding, but they're mistakes. They're worried to make these mistakes because they think that it's going to define them for the rest of their lives. And they have analysis paralysis. And instead of just waiting and having a little bit of patience and communicating, because after COVID, communication skills have diminished, in my opinion, especially in the sales world and in the administrative world significantly because of this thing right here, guys, because of these things here, right? This does not make us better communicators because you could pick up a phone and dial a phone does not make you a better communicator. It's eye contact, it's gestures, it's prowess, it's how you're sitting there, it's the conversation you have with somebody, it's the tone, the inflection, the tangibles that people are learning that maybe you need to teach in high school. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, public schools worked for that Ford method. We were putting people in factories working 9 to 5 and painting. You get two colors, black and black with your car, right? And that Mr. Ford mentality.
Mm-hmm.
The world is different now. So maybe what needs to happen, and hopefully what we're doing with my kids, especially for the summer, is challenging that status quo in our public school system. So my wife told me, what are we going to do for the kids this year for the summer? I have a 10, 7, and an 18-month-old. And I said, they're going to do some fun stuff, right? Astro skate, which is a local skate place. We're going to the water park. Hope we'll go to Disney. But they're on a 10-week business program that at the end of the 10-week program, they will have to come up with a business plan. And my wife said to me, yeah. And my wife said to me, she's like, you're crazy, right? In the nicest way possible. I love my wife. Thank you, my love. But she said, you're crazy. She's like, why? I go, why don't you look into it? And what did she do? Copied and pasted, put the ChatGPT or Claude or whichever one, right? Insert AI, and it said, hey, this is why your husband is being this way and probably so crazy because he sees the forest through the trees because our kids aren't learning about these things. If they want to be entrepreneurs, they need more roadway. They need more time to develop. So if you develop that talent young, right? And 10 and 7 is young. And to be fair, this is not a boot camp. They're not getting graded on this. This is just a fun way for them to learn. It's very course driven at their own pace. So not everyone think that I'm putting my kids to slave labor here in some way or shape or form. That is not the case whatsoever. But I want them to be prepared for the world that is changing today. And like you've been talking about, is the world that is currently being educated the way they're being educated maybe the right way? Or maybe there's a mystification and a miss between middle school and college, where high school needs to change its dynamic. They've cut sports, they've cut the band, they've cut extracurriculars. I mean, I was in SAD. I was a vice president of the Jewish club, and I'm not of the same tribe. But again, I did those things because they were fun. I was meeting people. I was learning about culture. I was doing these things. But these kids don't have that anymore. It's, hey, get straight A's. If you don't have a 4.5 GPA, you're a loser, right? That's that mentality. If you're not a next Ronaldo or superstar, right, on your soccer team, then you're not going to amount to anything. And that's not true. C students are running the A students. C students, I'll say it again, are the ones running and working with the A students who are the engineers and are helping them build companies. So if that's the case, the mentality has to shift some way in some form. But how can it if we don't allow it at some point? And, people like you who have organizations like yourself who are helping these executives and these people get trained up. This is maybe the crux or opportunity. Maybe it's the missing link. Maybe this is where you go down the path of having your own, extracurricular homeschooled business courses for high school kids. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's what's missing in the market, because there really isn't anything to help bridge the gap. And we're just talking about making more corporate bees in this huge hive of the world. Maybe there is an alternative. I don't know. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but that's why I have guys like John here, because he's the smartest guy. He knows more than I do, and he knows what's going on in the market and can tell us.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. First of all, I think your summer program for your children is fantastic. And I think, I agree. One of the things that I wish that I had learned in school, it was great to get the education. And like you said, you focus on the learning, but if it just becomes about the grades, I wish we had more training in, okay, this is, that you get grades to go to college to get a good job. Okay, well, that doesn't really pan out for everybody. So what can we teach people about two things? What it takes to be successful, right? And actually set them up for success in life, in business, in life, right? And the training around that. And that's, to your point, what you're doing here with this program is you're doing two things. One, you're getting to think about business and make it creative and make it fun. But two, you're also teaching them something about strategic planning in general, right? Which is something you need to be thinking about in your life. You're creating a life path for yourself and how do things fit together. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that's something that's missing. I think another thing that's missing right now, to your point about the fear of making mistakes. Children grow up in so much more of a fishbowl now than we used to, right? And so your mistakes are everybody can see it, and you will be, every little thing that you do, you can be made fun of across multiple platforms by all your friends, and frankly, the whole world. Like, you can become a meme, right? And then the whole world sees it, and for you doing something stupid. So there is, I think, the fear of failure is more present, and it becomes and this is something you said earlier, right? Like failure is how we learn, right? I have a colleague, Anthony Diodato, and he's got a great acronym for it that FAIL stands for first attempt in learning, right? And that's what how we learn is failing. That's all how we learn. That's how we learn the best lessons, and that's how we learn to get better. And so I think that is a piece that this generation kind of struggles with coming in, is this fear of failure. And I think the thing that we need to kind of, to your point, if it's in the workplace, it's about, hey, creating an opportunity where people can come in and fail and learn, and there's tolerance for that, and there's teaching around that. In school, it's there's so much pressure on the grades. There's no room for failure. Sports, it's the same thing, right? Like, you can't just go and play soccer, and you can't just go and play football or hockey or whatever your kid's sport is. If you're doing it, you have to be in every camp, right? You have to be traveling constantly. There's just a lot of pressure around success. And I think it creates there's this, like, the failure is just stigmatized instead of it being, hey, this is how you grow and learn. And two, I think resilience, the getting up after you fall down, that is something that we really need to learn as well, and really need to incorporate into, how we teach folks as well. And again, right, in your workplace, it's instilling that, and it's training people for it, and it's getting people to be mentally agile. You make a mistake, that's fine. You made the mistake. How are you going to solve it? What are you going to do next? Right? That building problem solver mentality that is really about building resilience is something that's really critical. And to your point, I think that is a challenge, a unique challenge for this current generation, because of the focus on, it's about success on paper, and it's about never being able to present to the world an image of yourself failing, because you will be chastised and it will be public in such a way that we didn't grow up with.
Yeah, we didn't have the cameras. I'm happy that was the case when I was a kid.
Yes.
So, well, I'm happy. Not because we did anything wrong, because we love the government and we love the world and we were always perfect, right, Mom? Yep. But I think you hit the nail on the head. And this is just so you guys all know, this is why I love having John on. This is why I wanted to come back on. Failure. You don't get a diamond without pressure from that coal. You don't find success because you're looking in the rearview mirror. That's why the rearview mirror is smaller than that windshield, because you have to look forward. And the failures that kids aren't finding today because they're being, coddled is the wrong word, but the generation is being given this bubble. I don't know if you ever saw Bubble Boy, but they're given this bubble, and they are worried that if they puncture it, that they're going to die. They're not. It's okay. It's okay. It's not a big deal. What's a big deal is sitting down and not getting back up.
That's right.
You don't run multiple businesses or have multiple organizations because things are going well every second of the day. There's HR issues that you're going to have to learn, interpersonal skills. You're going to have to figure it out. If you live in places like the state of New York or Chicago or California, you have to understand you can make a lot of mistakes with interpersonal skill relationships if you're trying to do HR work and you don't know the rules. There are other states that are more forgiving, the southern states, some of the Midwestern states, but you can make mistakes that will impact your business. And this is part of those failures that you have that to accumulate so that when you do find the success, you're not put in a bad position. And you can't be working in the business. You have to be working on the business. The only way to work on it is to be well-rounded. It's great. You can hire people, consultants, you can hire trainers, you can hire all these people. But if you don't know how to identify that you need them, it doesn't matter if you can't find them because you never knew you needed it in the first place. So identification of concerns and being able to find that is a huge deal because you can't find guys like John. You may hear this podcast and this may be the thing that just sparks it for you. But if you don't know where the problem is, you don't know where to find the solution and how to ask for help. And that's the biggest thing. We all like to call ourselves, the person at the top, the ivory tower, right? We all want to be that person. The world is perfect and it's never wrong. Our team is always talented and we don't need help. We don't need education. We do. We all just have to be a little bit more humble, right? Humility is a huge deal, especially in business, because if you're willing to say, hey, I don't know, and a lot of people today aren't willing to say that. If you're not willing to say it, though, you're not creating a humble environment. You're going to attract people that you may not be happy with attracting. You have to attract the people that you feel on the inside. Lay that heart on the sleeve, protect it, but be honest, be open, be forward. If you don't do that, think of the people that you're going to end up putting yourself in front of, the employees that you're going to hire, the partners that you're going to partner with. Because whether it be in marriage or in business, partnering with somebody is one of the biggest decisions that you're going to make in your life of define the future of the success of the organization or your life personally. So it's important to make that right decision. If you don't want to take the time to think about it and really figure out where the failures are, then you're going to have the success you want. Most people, and I do have a few friends that have done this, get married once they meet somebody in Cincinnati. So you don't just go to Vegas and get married, right? You don't meet a wonderful person, whoever that person is to you, and say, hey, I'm going to go get married tomorrow in Vegas, mom and dad. Hey, if you guys want to come, we met each other yesterday. There's a courtship. There's a period of time that you test the relationship out. The same thing should be done in your business world, whether it be an entrepreneur, whether it be in a corporation, because they're testing with you as well. This is the runway we're talking about. There has to be some time to be able to figure out if it's going to work or how it's going to work and if it makes sense. You don't want to be put into yourself in a situation where you're stuck or you take on debt or you get SBA loans, which, are a whole nother bunch of coconuts, or you commit to having people do training and you're not committed to the training yourself, being hypocritical. These are the things that people are forgetting and they forget because they don't know. And that's okay. It's okay not to know. But what's not okay is to let it go and then not learn from it. Learn from it and build upon it that you can see the success and you can be the person. If you want that Ferrari, have fun. If you want to have a house in the Hamptons, right on. Good for you. I'll build it for you too if you want. But ultimately, is that the thing that's going to make you happy? Happiness is obtainable if you're willing to be humble, and willing to work with people, and willing to have conversations and create dialogue that's open, honest, with humility and heart and hand.
Agreed. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah, I think so. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy on a show that everyone apparently tries to watch every once in a while. So I know nothing. So, but John, I truly appreciate you jumping on with me again. It's always a pleasure. And again, I want to make sure you tag the business. So if you can pop in here, how can they find you? How can they reach out to you? How can they get help and training? Because everybody's going to want to know because they just heard this sermon I just gave on my soapbox, and they want to know how do they find you now that they've been given this wonderful enrichment and enlightenment.
Sure. So there are two organizations. One is the Advanced Leadership Development Institute. And with that company, we focus on leadership development, executive coaching, high performing teams development, and executive strategy for high growth innovation companies. And so, all the things we talked about, building this resiliency of your people and creating pathways for their development so you can maximize your, your lifetime value of your employees. That's what we do. That's how we help. And then my other organization is Alloy Consulting. That's focused more with Main Street businesses. So small businesses, founder-based businesses, people who are in that chief cook and bottle washer mode where they are completely buried in the tactical. And they created this business because they had a certain life goal around happiness, as you said. And now the reality is for entrepreneurs who start a business, the business has become their life. And so what I do is I come in and work with them on how do we get you back on that strategic path to set up the business in service of the life and the opportunities that you were trying to create when you started this business in the first place. So that's how they can find me. Alloy Consulting and the Advanced Leadership Development Institute.
Well, guys, you heard it from John. That means you have to do it now. So we'll make sure you put the link below when our good friend Josh, who does all these wonderful videos for us, ends up finishing and getting this all cleaned up for you. But again, John, I appreciate it. I hope the viewers appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll have you back on and we'll complain about some more things in the marketplace sooner than later. So
happy to do it.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Rudy. Have a good one, man.
You too.